Hey y'all, welcome back to the Takeoff. I'm Max Henry, and on today's episode, we have world champion, mad genius of movement, Kevin Franzen from Sweden. I was super excited to get Kevin on. Not only is he one of the most innovative and creative athletes in the sport, but he also is an innovator and a creative in the culture through the work that he has done with Kippa, both with their physical magazine and also their massive library of phenomenal video content, which if you're listening to this, I'm sure you're already familiar with. But I wanted to talk to Kevin about where he has kind of fit into the community, how he evolved from being a competitive kid in the Swedish gym scene into a phenomenal street athlete and one of, again, the most ingenious, innovative athletes in our sport, and what he did to tap into that level of innovation that we see in his movement today, how he got there. And I was really surprised with his answer. Turns out that a lot of it lies in failure and messing up. And I think that his perspective was a lot more relatable than I necessarily anticipated. I think you are going to learn a lot from it. I definitely took some inspiration and motivation from this episode and have plenty of things to apply to my own training pretty much as soon as I shut this episode down. So I hope you enjoy this. As always, thank you for listening. Here is Kevin. Kevin
Sure.
Franzen. Thank you so much for coming on the Takeoff, man.
Thank
Glad
you
we
for
made it
having
work.
me. Yeah, it's
I'm
awesome.
glad that we didn't both have to have a horrible time change situation when you were in Tokyo and trying to do it when you're like awake at 6 in the
Yeah.
morning and I'm awake at 10 in the evening.
Yeah, and honestly, I got up quite late every day in Tokyo, so that would have been quite hard.
I tried to do one with Mikesh when he was in Osaka, and it was similarly like I think the only time that worked for both of us was very late my time and very early his time.
Yeah.
And it was just that was inconvenient for everybody, but it seemed like
No,
you had
this is
a
great.
good trip. You got to do some sick new bar moves. I saw. I was loving
Oh, yeah.
the Tokyo posts, and of
Yeah.
course, actually, this is a great first thing to talk about. What were those walls like? That magical
Ah,
wall back handspring Valdez to like bridge catch was amazing.
they're, it's like it's unusual that you find any spot like that has tiles anywhere outside of Japan, I feel like, or at least outside of like that area of the world, and they're really slippery unless you wipe them down. Like if there's a little bit of dust, you will slip. So you have to, like, Shun, who I stayed with, who was an amazing host. He showed me, like, he's the guy who does a lot of this cat and popularized it, I would say. And he showed me he gets like a little towel and he wipes off like the walls and everything. Then he puts a little bit of water on it, puts it down. So every time he goes, he can just dab his feet on the like damp towel. So there's no dust on his shoes either. So he had it like kind of nailed down. It was really fun to learn the technique as well from him. And then it just ended up being a really nice spot to do this kind of wall back handspring that I have been wanting to do for like maybe 5 years. There's a spot in the gym I grew up in, Airwhip, where I've thought about doing that kind of combination for a really long time, but I think it's slightly too wide, but it's also wood, so the grip is not as great. So it was just fun, like coming back to that idea after a few years and just like, oh, like it just popped up when I was there. It's like, oh, this could work. Gave it a try. It worked.
Do you have a lot of tricks like that you just kind of brainstorm and they're in your back pocket? Like, I don't know what you did that double flyaway I don't know what the second variation is called, where you sort of like.
I call it like a shirai or a dead hang, like, because it just looks like you
yeah.
kind of, I'd think a dead hang, like when you do it on a wall, I'd call it shirai because I've seen him do it first. But if I do it on just a rail, I call it like a dead hang because you just grab it and then relax. Like, that's really the tech. There's not a lot to it. Gravity does most of it. But yeah, no, that one as well. Like I wanted to do that onto a wall instead of a rail at SBL 2, SBL 2. So like that was also a few years in just my back pocket. I think a lot of times we have really good ideas, but or like we're good at making ideas, but we're really good at like excusing them fast and being like, oh, this is not a good idea,
Yeah.
And so I always have this like rule of thumb: if I have an idea, I'll like try to mention it, or I'll try to just attempt it once, because even if I want to go away from what I'm doing currently and just try it once, the chances of me remembering that trick or the idea is like so much higher than if I just don't do it or don't say it out loud or don't record
Yeah.
a recording of something. Yeah, it's the same as like when you go to bed, you have a good idea and you're like, oh, I'm gonna remember this one tomorrow. Like you never do. So I always, as a rule
Uh,
of thumb, try
that's
to do
amazing.
something.
Do you have voice notes or like memos to yourself in bed that you wake up with these ideas
No,
sometimes?
I
Because I
sleep with
definitely have.
a sticky note next to my bed.
Nice.
So I just write something down physically. So I don't do voice notes because I just don't. I know that I don't. My phone is such a unorganized brick of things that I never go back into things. So I only like go back on my own Instagram and maybe my own gallery. So that's why I record things if I'm
Hmm.
doing something like a trick or something. Because I might just actually go back 3 years suddenly by scrolling if I'm on a train, and then I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. I should try that again. You know.
Yeah. Well, I love your trick engineering. I think anybody who's listened to this knows. I was chatting about this with Brenda from Vancouver. She was kind of asking me like, who do you think the parkour athlete, like who is their favorite parkour athlete person? And my I was like, okay, immediately off the top of my head, I was like, Nico, you, Camilla, would be like my top three. Where you talk to the best athletes in the world, and it's like, who would you like to move with, or who is your favorite person to watch? And you've always been up there for me. And in preparation for this conversation, speaking of going back through Instagram and content, I went to your YouTube and was watching Kevin Franzen's 2015 Stampede submission video.
Terrible stuff. Oh, I was just about to say
uh,
thank you for all the nice stuff you said, but now you brought this up. Oh God.
well, here's the thing. It gives me hope because I think the first time that I saw your stuff was in Air Whip. I don't remember if it was 2016 or 2017, but it was
Mm.
the first time you competed. I think Ellis was there as a child as
Was I
well.
competing with the adults?
I think so.
So
Yeah.
2017, yeah.
And I remember your twisting was insane. And I'm like, who is this person that can just Randy out of nowhere? And your line building was good, but it was very much just like it was comp line building. Like there was
Yeah, very
nothing that
much.
stood out to me other than the fact that, holy cow, how can you make front twisting look so easy? And apparently enjoy it enough to throw it at the end of a line also, which was wild.
Yeah.
Like punch Randy and then casually stomping it in 2017. Insanity. But my favorite thing about watching some of your older stuff, and I think like I watched your next year video, you started a line with Randy and then went and it flowed amazingly better in just a year, but it still was very like art of motion. Um, it was really well put together comp stuff, but it wasn't like
A
it
bit
didn't have
trick
the
to
element of
trick.
surprise and trick engineering that you have now. Where when I watch your Christine can attest to this because she was trying to go to sleep when I watched SPL this past year, and she knew when you were on because it just was me yelling every like 4 seconds. Oh, where is he going? Like just that essentially for the 40 seconds or 30 seconds of your line, because I love that I have no idea what you're gonna do or where you're gonna go at any given moment. And the thing that I thought was so cool about that is seeing your old videos. I think there's a lot of conversation in the community about, kids come up and like, why do they have this comp style, or like is style dying out? And to me, you are the epitome in a lot of ways of style now. And I think a lot of times it is just age and finding your way. So I'm curious, what has your process been like? Like what was your style like then? How would you describe it? And what's your process been like to get to where you are at now as a trick engineer?
Wow, that's such a great question. I will say before I even answer this question that I did also like before, even before you asked me to be on this podcast, I have been listening to this podcast every time you upload. I think it's almost weekly at this point, right? Uh,
I skipped 1 week on vacation, but we've been
I
weekly
did
for,
not
yeah, this will be
notice
the
because you know,
21st episode.
things happen. But yeah, and I watch it. I listen to it every week, and it's really like interesting. And I feel like you always ask really good questions. And I feel like you've thought it through a long time before, which I enjoy. But to answer your question, yeah, I don't know where that kind of shift started. Um, I did have a knee injury at some point in 2021. Not anything specific, just overtraining as a young. I was throwing tricks that I could do with a younger guy's body, and not to say I'm
Mm-hmm.
old now, but I when I grew stronger and heavier, my ligaments were not up to the strength that I needed, or my muscles actually. My muscles
Mm-hmm.
were too weak to take that impact, and I think for that summer where I couldn't really train, I had to switch my style a lot. But I'd say even before that, because that was after Berlingo, and I think even during
Mm-hmm.
Berlingo, I had a completely different sense of line building. Um, yeah, I think the more I always compare parkour to cooking in a way when I do my workshops, and I think the more kind of herbs and spices and ingredients you have, the more meals you can make. And I think the longer you train, the more kind of little flavors and things you pick up along the way. And something that definitely started helping me was like just involving cartwheels a lot and variations of it, and like being on your hands, because a lot of people only use their hands to do like a little ground kong or something, whereas I feel like you can really like use it to maneuver differently and continue your momentum in a better way.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to pinpoint where it started, but it's interesting they point out that there's like a difference from when I was younger, and I can see it myself too because I look at my line from Air Whip, 2018 or 17, and I was in the finals, and I did like a line where I started at the bottom of this like 6 7 meter course, get up to the top to do a roll bomb, to then proceed to go down to do a Randy at the end, and it's stupid line building, and I didn't make the Randy. I landed straight on my ass on one of them, like in the finals. And yeah, like I look back at him like, what is this guy doing? He just wants to like put in another trick after another trick, but uh, I have no
You
idea
were
where I could pinpoint
pioneering
it to.
ascent competitive parkour. You were just like, I'm gonna make it all uphill courses. The
I oh,
reverse of the one in China.
I would not recommend it, man. It's just so great, and especially like it just being 16 and trying to get up on this massive course. It was yeah, but I don't know where it would have started. It's hard to pinpoint actually. I don't know. It's hard to
Well,
answer.
yeah, I'm glad you brought up Berlingo because that was kind of where I was thinking of going next and watching from the outside. The Swedish community I have been following since 2007, early 2007, with the initial Air Whip videos, and then Kato, and then more Air Whip, and it was always very competitive. I think it was the second or third Art of Motion was in Stockholm, and it has, I think, been a sporty community for a long time. And I feel like Kipa and Berlingo was the first time that I saw a less goal oriented manifestation of parkour coming out of Sweden, which was very cool. So I'm curious what drove you guys to do that because Berlingo was a road trip video, right, with Pontus.
Yeah.
And so what instigated that? And then what do you feel like in general, why do you feel like you guys put the effort into Kippa? Because I know with long form stuff, even when it's just kind of editing with the homies, like it is a lot of work. What did you feel like you guys wanted to say or wanted to add?
Um. Well, Keepa started out as this thing where it was me and my friend Tim, or like who used to be also an athlete of Airwhip. So we were sponsored by Airwhip. Then we had Joel Larson, who were sponsored by Fairning Sweden, and then we had Hugo and Lester, who had their own little team. And basically, we all just went on a trip together, and I made a documentary series about it for Airwhip. And then after that, we thought we want to hang out more, and we'd rather put our stuff like all together into one. And that's kind of how Keepa came about. And I don't remember when or why, but Joel made a video called Robots, which was just him
Mm-hmm.
and Hugo and Lester uh, training, and Mons from Förening Sweden, aka Core Corkson, um, who made a video in Stockholm for like a few months. I had no idea about this because I live about 6 hours from them, and suddenly they had a finished video. So, and I felt very left out at that point. So we thought we should make another video, and that, we wanted to make like a long piece. And that turned out to be Berlingo through this like kind of road trip. I actually never was on that road trip. All my clips are filmed outside of that road trip because I was
Nice.
working in a supermarket, like at a Walmart, sort of, for the entire summer. So my clips are kind of filmed outside of that. But we just decided we wanted to make another big piece like robots, but just bigger and better, different camera, different soundtrack, and that's how it came
Hmm.
to be. Um, so I don't know where the original idea for robots came from, but Berlingo was definitely motivated by that. And the reason I have such a long part is because I felt a bit left out from the robots video, so I went like extra hard and just got as many clips as possible.
And was that before the knee injury or after the
That
knee
was
injury?
before. That was before, yeah. And
Okay.
then, yeah, I took some pretty hefty drops in Berlingo. Yeah. So
You
that
can
was the
see
year
the
before.
deterioration happen in real time.
Oh yeah.
No.
Yeah, no, but I did build up my strength after that, and I feel like, yeah, definitely in the video after that, quality control, like the next big piece, that's when I was injured, and you can tell my movement is a lot less impacty, and yeah, but even before that, I'd argue in Berlingo, that's where even there you could see a change in style compared to this competitive thing. Um,
Hmm.
I think probably because I took a break from competition actually, if I'm going back to the first question, because I just realized
Hmm.
I was a competitive athlete from 2015. I started training 2013, 2012, and then I heard about this competition in Gothenburg and went there when I was like 14 and placed second. And from then I was like, oh, this is great. I'm good at this. I'm going to keep trying this. So I just went to competition after competition. And after Air Challenge 2018, which was the last one,
Hmm.
I felt kind of done with competition for a while, and I didn't actually touch any competitions until Project Underground 2022, even, I think, because of COVID, right?
Hmm.
So I took a 2-year break, which ended up being like four almost because of COVID. Um, and I think that was great for me to take a break from competition. I came back as a
Yeah.
better athlete and also a better competitive athlete. I would argue that my runs now are scored better despite not being as focused on difficulty as they were when I was younger.
I would say they're definitely more interesting to watch, which for me is a huge component of how I think parkour should be scored. And I don't want to get too into the competitive stuff, but I am curious because I feel like you're one of for me, and a lot of people in my generation who I know listen to this, like when I talk about competition with Callum, it's such a different beast because for both of us, it wasn't really a thing. It wasn't even conceptually a thing when we started the sport, and then for the first 5 years, it was just like people making fun of it and a handful of people who liked it, and it was just like such a mixed bag. What do you feel like the influence of competition has been on your training? Like, how's that journey been?
Well, my first
Especially as a
impression of
kid,
yeah, so
because
my
that's
first
like wild
impression
that you
of
started so early.
yeah, I know, right? Well, my first impression was of parkour was this kind of well, to make my point even clearer, like I started out doing wrestling when I was younger, and that's a very competitive sport. And I did that for 6 years, and I enjoyed the training, but I never enjoyed the competition side. Um, it was just too, yeah. I didn't like losing in front, especially in front of my parents. Like I felt like I was letting them down, so I couldn't really deal with that as it was being very young. And then I went into gymnastics for about half a year, maybe a year, because
So it was really
the
the
one
outfits that were drawing you to these sports.
is
Clearly, it's just the
yeah,
unitard.
I just
Anything with a
can't get away from
unitard.
tights, man. No, but I ended up going to gymnastics because I liked doing handsprings as a wrestler, and I thought flipping was fun. So my wrestling coach
Sick.
was like, "You should try this." But I didn't enjoy that either because it was so strict, and I didn't like the competitiveness of it either. Um, And so my first impression of parkour was my dad showing me a news article and then me looking up YouTube parkour. And what I found was the amazing stunts, amazing like world's best parkour and free
Mm-hmm.
running with Bart van der Linden in the thumbnail. And
Yep.
from that, I looked at the links and I ended up looking at X Tour. So I looked at that, and then
Okay.
my first impression is kind of this is like guys traveling across the world together, having fun, and I just went full in on Farang. So that's kind of where I started getting like a lot of inspiration. Like, wow, this is what parkour is about. I also thought when I could do a cork on concrete flat, I would be professional. That's like very, like
At that
just
time, maybe
maybe.
accurate.
But then my second like impression in person was there was literally the Arab Challenge 2013 on this big castle out in like the outside edition. That was like my first
Yeah.
like seeing it in person.
Was that Helsingborg? Is that where they
Yeah,
did that one?
Helsingborg.
Yeah.
So it's such a mixture of like input, I feel like, for being that young. Um, but for me, it was never about the competition. I just saw it like almost as a show.
Mm-hmm.
And for the first 3 years, it wasn't like I never asked like, can I compete or something. It was just like I want to learn to do all this stuff and travel and be cool. Like, and this is what it's about.
Yeah.
Um,
Did you learn on your own or did you go straight to a gym?
Straight to coaching, but even before, because I signed up before the gym opened
Mm-hmm.
at Arab, and so there was like a few months where they were like just taking signups, but like we're starting in a few months. And during those months, I had like a little chest of toys, and I used that chest like a wooden chest to just learn all the vaults via YouTube
Nice.
tutorials, like Ronnie Chavez and like
Yep. Jesse
Jesse LaFleur.
LaFleur,
Yeah, and I ended up
America's
making a
greatest
whole.
contributions to
Oh
parkour
yeah,
culture.
but dude, I ended up learning so much, and I even like tried to learn front flips, like flat front flips or Kong fronts, and I ended up like just healing, putting my heel through the wall, in my parents' place. But I could already backflip before starting parkour due to gymnastics. But even before that, just a trampoline in the backyard. So I had a lot of prerequisites to learn faster when I ended up starting classes, for sure.
Yeah. That's so cool that you started, because I think where I was curious about the competition question
Hmm.
is it feels like competition and culture is like such a squishy word, but I guess for this sake, when I say culture, I think more the part of the scene that maybe they compete, but it's more, I think about GFAM, I think about the Commons, I think about Keepa, I think about that aspect where it's driven by street training
Hmm.
and sometimes by content, but more just kind of the like hangout vibe, train on the streets with your friends. They feel very on opposite ends of the spectrum to me, even though many of the best athletes obviously do both. And I was curious how you navigated that spectrum. But the fact that one of the first things you saw was X Tour, it seems like it was already kind of in your brain. You're like, here's the showcase. The competition is this the performance, the showcase, and then the day to day is like go out with your friends and you're having fun. Does that feel accurate?
That feels accurate. Yeah, like I never considered like it has to be either or. Like for me, it was just like I'm going out every day and I'm gonna train in my city and I'm gonna bike to my friend's house and knock on his door. Hey, you want to go training today? And if he says no, I'll just do it on my own. But I also thought like when I started doing competitions as well, like oh, I look forward to this competition. I want to learn this trick so I can do it in this competition. But it was never like that wasn't the goal. It was just another part of parkour.
Mm-hmm.
And I still think about that like yeah, I still think about it like this
Yeah.
very often, like even to to this day. Now I'm like, oh, what we could be fun to do at SPL. Like if I'm having a boring session, I'm like, maybe I should just try something new, or what could be fun to do here. But I also spent 2 years filming a solo part, but I also like I don't really want to confine myself to anything.
Yeah. What is your favorite part that you filmed? Because you've been in so many between Keepa, Fishboy, and Dr. Eel. There are probably 18 other very fantastic video parts that you've been in, pun intended.
Uh,
Do you have a favorite?
um I'll always love Berlingo because there was a lot of like that was like I really pushed myself to do a bunch of new tricks. And while I don't see parkour as this kind of tick list of things to like learn, I progressed a lot during that year, and it's a very long part as well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but every time I look back on it, I'm like always like, maybe it wasn't as good as I remember. I see this as this like great thing sometimes, but I love certain clips from like Keep a Boston. I don't particularly have my own part, but there's parts I really like. Um, yeah, it's so day to day. It also depends on the
Yeah,
music that's in there.
that's
Uh,
true. Who
like
is
yeah,
the who's the music mastermind of all the 70s stuff? Is that Joel or is that
it's a lot of Lester,
Hugo
and it's a
or
lot of
Lester?
our suggestions. Yeah, we all suggest songs. Like for Berlingo, I suggested both my songs, but for Quality Control, Lester picked one. But I think we're all a little bit into the 70s, for sure. Um, yeah, I'm a big 70s guy.
I would pay to see you to grow your hair out in a 70s style. I think that would look very entertaining.
I
So
yeah.
if you continue to get subpar haircuts, I think you just go full shoulder length. It'd
Yeah,
be
yeah.
it'd be a vibe.
Yeah, maybe I'll do that. That could be fun. I just feel like it'd be in my way. I don't know. At some point I always prioritize parkour over most things,
It
including
factors
a good
heavily
haircut.
into many aesthetic decisions. I was talking about that with Egg yesterday or 2 days ago, and they're saying how um when Egg would chat with Elijah Mueller, who would do tons of these 360 pre's with hair that's like down to his elbows. And Egg was like, how do you see? And your brain just figures it out, I guess. So maybe that just
Yeah,
adds
true.
another layer of difficulty. Well, you said that parkour is not a tick list for you, despite being able to Adolf and do all kinds of disgusting, very vertically challenging tricks that you have to kind of go into a rabbit hole to get close to. What do you see parkour as? Or how do you think of your journey in training on a day-to-day basis?
It really depends on what I find fun. Parkour for me is just a way to enjoy myself. So I will always do what I find most enjoyable. And sometimes that is like trying to learn as many tricks as possible. I also find that I have a lot more fun when I have a lot more to play with. So the more moves I have, the more I can experiment and just find like things that I find fun. I like learning things, and I always like learning things. And I think as a child, subconsciously understanding that this sport didn't have any rules, meaning it didn't have any limits, for me
Mm-hmm.
felt like wow, I can just play for like endlessly. And I think that's what parkour is for me. It's just an opportunity to learn and explore, which are like the two things I really always loved as a young kid and as still, um yeah, it's like exploration combined with play. And yeah, I don't know how else to put it's very vague, but that's how it is. But day to day, it depends. It's like
Yeah.
tomorrow I might just do a strength training session, which is not very explorative or very fun. It's just work, but it's like I do that so I can then try this thing on Friday, Like it all comes together as a big
Mm-hmm.
mishmash.
Yeah. I like your training feels very, it looks from the outside very like fractal. So like when I was chatting with Denali a couple weeks ago after he and Callum and some other people have been talking about the way that we talk about challenge and how some people kind of are pushing things horizontally where it's less about doing congainer and then congainer pre and then congainer rail pre and then whatever the next variation would be. Obviously congainer rail dash bomb out, um, as one does.
Mhm.
You can also go in this sort of like organic fractal way. And I feel like you and Nico and Camille are the people that I kind of admire the most and want to, if I wanted to emulate anyone's training or if I want to trigger myself into thinking more creatively about a spot, I will often go, what would Egg do here? What would Kevin do here? What would Nico do here? What would Camilla do here? I think that, yeah, it feels like a tree. It's like sometimes it grows vertically and then branches off in weird directions that don't actually make sense. And then they sort of just sit there for a couple years. And then all of a sudden, another branch that was growing sort of juts across, and then the two meet in these really fun, unique convergences. And I think that is a really beautiful way to approach training. And I think that, yeah, I was curious to see what you felt like guided that, and play and exploration
Yeah.
are really beautiful guiding
Fun.
beacons.
I feel like
Yeah.
fun is the water that like makes your like that tree grow, you know. I
Mhm.
definitely agree with you, and I use this analogy. Is it an analogy or a metaphor? I never know the difference.
It depends on how we would explicitly frame it, but I think currently it is
Either
a
way, you
metaphor.
understand.
Yeah.
I use this analogy often while teaching. I actually use quite a lot of analogies when teaching my workshop, um, because yeah, I see it as a kind of a
It's
tree, um, and it's very much guided by feeling and what piques my interest the most. And I'm not afraid to like, okay, I'm currently working on back full, let's say, but if I happen to somehow do an Arabian by accident, and I've never done that before, and I'm like, wow, this is really fun. That was cool. I'm not afraid to go away from the back full and just continue. Like wherever my interest lies, that's where I'm gonna go.
mhm.
Like whatever I find
Yeah.
the most interesting.
I love that. I mean, I think it's also good maybe to kind of to take a second, because I think here's where your food analogy is also really helpful. Fun. I think a lot of times people hear that, and that it's easy to say pursue what's fun, but a lot of times we struggle to identify what's fun. And I like how maybe the food analogy is a good place to come at that. Unsurprisingly, to anybody who's seen my parkour, maybe, and to continue to beat this metaphor into the ground, I ate a peanut butter and jelly sandwich every day for lunch from ages probably 8 until 18. So for me, doing progressively larger rail precisions is incredibly fun and feels like this is all I need in the entire world to be happy, for in many, many ways. What do you, I guess, what would you say to somebody who is looking at the entire broad landscape of parkour, because there are so many different ways to pursue this practice, and maybe they're kind of trying to find their voice, like they're trying to figure out what kind of cuisine they
Mm.
like?
Well, I feel like if in speaking of terms of food, like you're not gonna be able to find out if you like something unless you try it. Like you have to
Damn
taste
it, I have
it.
to do cork zeros. Oh,
And
it's
and
the worst.
listen, I don't like Cork Zeros because I don't understand them right now. Maybe in 2 years, maybe in 3 years, I really like them. But it's the same. Like if you, for example, really liked having peanut butter sandwich every day, or like progressively, you know, broadening a jump or something, that's what you wanted to do. That's where you're gonna find the first most success. Because usually, what we like is also what we're good at, or they, you know, kind of intertwine each other. Because you're good at
Hmm.
something, you're more likely to, yeah, because you like
Yeah.
something, you're more likely to be better at it. Um, so it's totally normal, and I feel like seeing you kind of like wanting to explore movement recently more, and like trying, like, for example, that pole reverse that we were talking about, like I feel like you've actively made a choice to go there, but also you've made that active choice because you found it interesting. It's not like you're going against your own will and going like, I don't want to do this, but I should. Like I feel
Hmm.
like went there because you wanted to, and getting to that interest point might take 1 year or 3 years. It depends where you're, you know, how you are as a person and what you like otherwise. I feel like the more I got into trying different stuff, the more my tree kind of broadened, you know. But as
Hmm.
many trees, there's first like a stem that has to go up a little bit until it blooms out to the leaves.
Yeah. You got to wrap it around with some wires so that the deer don't come and eat it. The deer in this horribly maimed metaphor being social media algorithms, because you try and do something and it gets 800 views and you usually get 1200 views. Why would I
Yeah.
try and do that weird movement again? I
Well, I mean,
also feel like something. I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, but I don't think. But also, when you're exploring, that doesn't necessarily need to be posted. Like, you can just do that because you find it fun. I do a lot of stuff, film it, and I'm like, that looked whack, but it was fun, and I did it. And yeah, I think it's important. Another thing I do when I film something, unless I'm like just having an explorative session, if I'm
Hmm.
really enjoying the progress of filming like a difficult line or a difficult trick, I don't want to look at it most of the time until afterwards, or even like maybe half an hour later, even though I finished the line, because I find that I'm never quite fully happy. So I've just stopped. Like, I got it. It felt good. I think it looked cool. Cool. And then I'll look at it in 2 hours. Like, because at that point, I'm not going to try it again. Because otherwise, I've found that I've put myself in this situation where I just torture myself trying it over and over again.
I like
Sorry
that
for
your
going on a little
self-loathing
tangent.
has led to a really healthy relationship with media in parkour. You're like, I actually hate watching myself so much that I have developed a really good habit of not attaching my movement to how it looks on film.
Wh- Well, I don't hate watching myself. I think I'm the person that watches my own Instagram the most, because whatever I post on Instagram, I'm like, I really like that. But what I'm
Yeah.
saying is I think
It's easy to be
we're
hypercritical.
yes, and it's very easy to be like, I read a book recently, I don't remember where or what it was called, but there's a part where it says like, don't be the critic too early, right? If you're making a
Mm.
movie, you have to also edit it and everything, and then you can be the critic. You can't make it and criticize at the same time.
God, that is a great piece of advice.
And
Yeah.
I think that's like the thing. Like, I don't want to look at it until I'm done with it. When it comes
Yeah.
to that kind of movement. But sometimes I'll have a look, like, how does that look like, to understand it better. So there's
Hmm.
differences there, but I'll not look at it to be like, am I happy with this? But more like, oh, does that look like I thought it did? How does it work? Outside,
Yeah.
kind of get an outside perspective on it.
Well, I'm glad you took us down this tangent, because this is something that has come up a lot in my own conversation. And I think I want to find someone to do an entire podcast about this with, but something that, I'm 33. Most of the people in the Colorado scene that I train with are over 30. Many of them are over 35. And a conversation that we regularly have is like, what does hobby parkour look like when you're not starting as a hobbyist, but you have maybe spent the last 15 to 20 years training at a very high level, feeding this narrative that parkour is always about growth and novelty and progression. Because at a certain point, even when you're exploring new things, the concrete, like linear progression that people experience in the first 10 maybe years of parkour will stop. And I think that's when a lot of people drop out, is they go, "Ah, well, nothing is worth filming. I haven't gotten better in 2 months," or whatever it is. And I do think that what you said about filming there is particularly powerful, because something I hear a lot is the "I didn't film anything this session, so I had a bad session" narrative. And it is powerful. I also train quite a bit and don't film, because I have a lot of days that are like, I want to go out and do stuff for 30 minutes or an hour, and I know that my body's not going to be feeling great enough to do anything that I'm excited about recording or sharing with people. But I know it's also going to feel good enough that I'm going to have a really good time if I go out and do it. Where do you feel like, I guess maybe I just want to get your opinion on this entire topic. Like, do you feel like there is an issue that, I don't, whether it's social media or YouTube or just kind of, to me, it's interesting how intertwined filming and our perception of success of a training session have become in the sport.
Yeah. Um, Once again, amazing question. And like, my brain is going in all these different tangents, and I'm trying to pick the
It's
one that
not
I
even a
that
question, so
interested
just
me the
take it in
most.
any direction. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm like, okay, what one is most fun? Which one is most interesting? But like, I don't know. I don't think that there's I think your progression is like ever expanding, but it's just different. It's not like it's never the same. It's just different. And that might be a very vague answer, but yeah, like I'm not going to be able to do a standing 11-foot broad jump when I'm 50 maybe. But
Hmm.
I might find a different way to enjoy doing a cat, or I might like there's so many like parkour is so nitty, like so there's so many details that you can work
Yeah.
on. And like I think it's so much about the individual challenge that you pose um to yourself. And so, a good way to still have fun is like go somewhere else, or like come at it from a completely different perspective, like really shake things around. You're not going to be great at it, but it's not about being great. It's never been about, for me, it's never been about like being good. It's just like I have this challenge, and now I'm trying it, and like, oh, I did it. That's fun. And the challenge can be super
Hmm.
stupid. Like, what if can I cartwheel with my elbows? Like
Don't tell
that
Parker Zebel that that's a stupid challenge.
no. But like I'm saying, like only your elbows,
Yeah.
not your
Very
arms.
arbitrary.
Yeah, like I'm. But yeah. I'm not gonna shout out Parker, but I think there's not really like for me. I don't feel like there's a limit to what can be done. But obviously, to
Yeah.
some point, there is like, yeah, your physical strength will decline, or not maybe progress as much. You won't progress maybe, and I think
Yeah.
that's okay. But then you just find a different way to enjoy it. I mean, there was that year that I couldn't do parkour because of my knee injury, in the same way that I used to. Was had to change up my style from doing this very high impact, difficult flips, a lot of twists, to very low impact, just flowing around like Fosky style, kind of minus the
Hmm.
drops. And I found that just as enjoyable. It was those weeks in between where I couldn't train at all because it was that bad. That's what was really like hard. For
Hmm.
me, parkour
So I
is like
guess,
also very much about putting an idea, and then like having an idea in your head, and then making it real.
yeah, I definitely want to bring us back to the point that you made about looking at things, like shaking things up and looking at them new, because your spot interaction and the way that your mind sees features in a landscape. I agree. I think the way I describe, or maybe conceptualize it, is I feel like parkour is fractal, so that there are these sort of macro patterns of movement, but then if you dig into a cat leap enough, you go down and all of a sudden you start to see this reflection of the same patterns, and then they just continue to repeat sort of infinitely deep as you continue to dive into it. But I also am curious about, you're an incredibly high level athlete, you are competing, you're on social media, you're making content all the time. There are a lot of people who, I think in your position, would feel obligated to film everything that they do. Particularly because for many of us, I'm sure that the things that maybe don't look up to your standard, people would be ecstatic to still be able to do. But to just maybe wrap up on this kind of filming question and defining that relationship, what would you what kind of boundaries would you set for somebody? Because I think a lot of people don't maybe even consciously say this or see this, and I think filming is great. Like, I film content regularly. I enjoy making it, enjoy editing it. I like to film other people, but I see in myself, when I'm gauging the success of a session by whether or not I have filmed something for somebody else's potential 3 seconds of enjoyment mid Instagram poop scroll, that detracts from my overall experience of the sport. So yeah, I'm just curious, like, in that specific filming aspect, what would you say are some boundaries that maybe you found for yourself, or that you would
Hmm.
recommend people experiment with?
Well, the funny thing is I film pretty much every session. Like I film something, and it's not for the sake of posting. I think that's what comes in. Like I think
Mm-hmm.
it's how you approach the session itself. And sometimes, sure, I'll be like, I really want to film something for Instagram today. That would be a lot of fun. And sometimes I fail. And then I might be like, oh, I didn't get it. But I'm not going to let that define the rest of the day or my mood. Like, I might be a little bit grumpy about it. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, well, it's not like I wasted my time. I had fun. I tried some things. It didn't go, okay, cool. Like, it's not that deep, you know? But yeah, I don't think you shouldn't film stuff. Like you can film everything. You learn so much from watching back your own stuff, and you might watching back in the same session, like, oh, that looks like that could actually go. Let me go and try that. So it really helps, especially when you're training alone. Like I film everything, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm filming it just for the sake of filming it or documenting. It's not for posting. It's just so I can see it myself, so I can enjoy it one more time. You could say, because I find just as much enjoyment from doing, maybe not much as much, not as much, but I enjoy doing the move, and then I also enjoy watching it because it's fun actually watching. Oh, that's how it looks like. Okay, even if it's just a Kong, like, oh, that's how it looks like. Okay, or a running pre, or whatever. But I love watching back it, so I film everything. But then I would just not film with the idea of like I'm gonna post this that often.
Mm-hmm. I think
Uh,
that's a great distinction to make
yeah.
between, yeah, filming for yourself, sharing, filming for the consumption of others. Yeah, it's definitely something that's been in my brain a lot more. And again, I think it's also a reflection of the fact that I didn't even have a cell phone when I started parkour, let alone a way to film parkour easily. So, something that's been floating around in my head is just putting out a call on, ironically, on social media to do a day where people jam and no one films anything and just have like a sort of just a curious to see how people experience it, because it is a different animal for me, and it's something that like is kind of the back of my head. You're like, oh, I should film that, or I kind of want to see what that looks like. And I'm like, it kind of is nice to not have that third party observer. But I think that the way you described it also, that film can be, it is a tool. It's just a tool, and it's another fun way to experience a session, and re-experience a session is a really good way to frame it.
Yeah, re-experience is the big one. Like I think like what you're posing here, like the having a jam without filming anything, like I feel like if I got a really cool challenge and I'd still do it, but I'd feel like what itching like somebody should film this,
Yeah.
and not to post it, but just so I can like relive it. And
Yep.
especially at jams where you can get everyone's reaction in, and like it like that's such a fun thing for me to just go back and
Yeah.
look. I have endless amounts of things on my phone that I've never posted, but I'm like I always go back and look at it because it's just fun, you know.
Yeah. No, same for me. And that's why I'm kind of curious. I'm like, I would like to have the extrinsic motivator of like an arbitrary rule that's just see what it's like to like sit in that feeling of slight like discomfort, trying to abstract myself and just like be in the moment. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's something that I think personally, I'm like, I want to do that more. I want to explore more. And
Hmm.
when I heard you talking about filming, I was like, I'm curious where you're at on that. But now I want to take us back to what you had said about spot exploration, because you see spots in a way that I think few other people have developed the depth of parkour vision that you have. What do you what is your communication like when you walk up to a spot with the architecture? Like where do things start? How does a line or a challenge develop when you roll up to a new spot?
I'll think about Japan for an example. Because when I went there, it was my first time, so all the spots were new, and I think a lot of the times what I'm looking for is what's a cool differentiating thing that's like what's the thing that stands out to me when I'm looking at the spot. Usually like it's not like, oh, here's a really good ledge to do a scoot full off of or something. Albeit some spots are like you're like, oh, this is perfect for this. Like I should practice this here. But a lot of the
Hmm.
times, like kind of when you're like when you're a kid and you're riding in the car and you're doing like little stickman jump, like you were like, oh, I'll swing on this, or like
Hmm.
the same way, like I'll look at a spot from afar and be like, oh, maybe I could roll on that slanted wall and then land on that wall. and that's kind of where it starts. Like I think you really need a seed, something like that sparks your interest. Like this could be cool, and from that, it really like yeah, fracturally, organically grows out to a more like a better idea. And to use my like wall back handspring squeeze between these walls as an example, that's something that I've tried before. Like I said at Air Whip many years ago, just because I was doing wall back handspring and just or like wall kong down or whatever you call it,
Hmm.
and I thought like it could be cool to like just stop in between, and then I forgot about it, and I was playing around by making a line where I would do the shuncat pre and then some kind of things in between and then a nice back handspring. And while I thought about that back handspring, then my mind connected it to you could do it here as a prep in between these two. And while doing the prep between those two pillars, that's when I thought, oh, I could actually squeeze here. And then that idea comes back. So it's like really, it depends on the session. But first and foremost, I don't say no to any ideas. That's like the biggest thing because we're our own worst critic, and it's great. You can be a critic. It's good. Like you grow from it, but you should be it afterwards. Because whenever you're a critic too early, like I spoke of earlier, you stop the organic process of creativity that's happening within you. I feel like a lot of times ideas are kind of like flowing out of you, and we're so good, and today's society especially, we're so good at restraining it because yeah, I speak of what ifs. I'm going a bit of a tangent here, but you're really good at like coming up with an idea like, oh, what if I tried this? What if I tried that? And that initial what if is great. You should always say yes to that. But then you have a lot of other what ifs like, but what if I look stupid? What if it doesn't work? What would and that's where you need to stop listening. You need to kind of put your head down and like, I had this idea, and I you had the idea for a reason. Like it excited you and you thought it might be possible or something. So then entertain it for a little bit. Don't just like push it aside. And the more you kind of I found the more I just say yes to my initial idea, the more ideas my like brain or whatever like where creativity comes from keeps sending to me, you know? So the more
Yeah.
you adhere to it, yeah, the better like that flow will get. And that's the same for approaching spots. I feel like the more you try stupid challenges, or like entertain funny ideas, silly ideas, the the more you'll get, and you'll kind of like rinse out this dirty water, you could say, until you get some clear, like something that works, like a little niblet of gold, a gold nugget, in the dirt.
Yeah.
So I think it's just that.
That panning for gold visualization, I think, that feels very accurate because it's kind of like you're, you put your little sift in the water and then you pick it up. And if you just look and you don't see any gold right away, but you haven't started to like shake it, go through the whole bucket, you're like, oh, all right, I guess this idea is crap. You throw it
Yeah.
out and maybe there is something in there that was worth exploring. I think that's fantastic. Do you have any I wouldn't say activities.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any way that you sort of concretely build your ease with coming up with those stupid ideas? Because I think the way that you explained that was amazing.
Mm.
Uh, and I found that that's incredibly helpful for my spot vision. But let's say you're at a workshop and you're working with somebody who's kind of struggling to see beyond the basic vaults.
Yeah. Um, what I have found doing workshops and also training, is I adjust my warm up depending on what kind of session I'm feeling like. And sometimes I'll just do a warm up and that just fuels my session. And so what I found helps a lot for doing these workshops and for getting people to try their silly ideas is doing intentionally warm ups where we look stupid. So like for example, I do this game where I say body parts you have to use only to get over blocks, and at the end we're using like um left side of your foot and maybe only your butt or something. And people come
Mhm.
up with cool ideas. They try them, they fall, they fail, they laugh. And just
Yeah.
realizing that, like, that's okay. I've also recently come to the realization that me bouncing a pre and doing some kind of Ilya Simakov move and failing is exactly the same thing. I've tried a challenge and I didn't make it. But for some reason, we're a lot more forgiving to ourselves when it's something that's we see more often. We see people bounce prees often, so we're like, okay, so that's normal. That's not like embarrassing. But if I'm trying to do a cartwheel onto a rail and I don't make it, like I look so stupid. Everyone's gonna think I look dumb. They don't even know what I'm trying. But it's like it's the same thing objectively, if you want to be objective about it. So also realizing that like you failing is not like embarrassing. It's the same thing as when everyone tries something else. And that's like, yeah, it's a hard thing to come to and also be comfortable with, and you have to like slowly work yourself up. But yeah, I mean, if you're training alone, then there's no one to judge you. If you're training with a friend, try to get them to come with you along this journey by maybe playing a game of stick and just, you know, tweaking some things, making or game of flip where you just try something a little bit more silly, like, oh, let's do a cartwheel but on our head, you know.
Mhm.
And at that point, you're starting to create an environment where everyone's more comfortable to look a little bit silly and try some silly ideas, and that's where the best ideas come from. And I use 25% of my workshop to just set the energy to then do the rest of the workshop, you know?
Yeah. You're creating a space where people can feel silly. I wanna highlight that because I think that when as we were kinda talking about pre and during recording, I've been talking about the idea of reviving old National Jam with Rob, and one of my favorite things about early parkour jams is everybody sucked so much that everyone looked dumb all the time, but it made it such a welcoming environment, and somebody could come in off the street and try parkour for the first time because they saw 100 people who looked dumb and comfortable in their own skin and enjoying the explorative, iterative process of failing until you finally find that little golden nugget of success. And I just wanted to highlight what you just said there because I think that's so important. And there are so many sessions now, and this maybe is where I guess for me personally, where it goes back to how I've been thinking about filming and the relationship with filming and parkour. There's so many sessions that become that guy is filming a part, and the entire session is sort of subconsciously structured around performance or allowing for a space where, in elite performance can occur versus a space that's more conducive to play and exploration. And I think you need to have both. Like you need to
Yeah.
have obviously if somebody in Bristol is going to go do like a really insane pole slide, you don't want to necessarily create this atmosphere that's like goofy and kind of unfocused and exploratory. Like you want them to be hyper focused and everybody's sharing the same goal. But I think I've seen many communities that have kind of trended more toward the one person performing, nine people observing versus a 10 people trying things independently or together and kind of failing together. And the way that you expressed that was beautiful. So I just want to say thank you,
Thank you.
and highlight that for a second. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And I was just wanted to go like also into that really shortly. Like it's it's you need both, yeah. And I think I'm very lucky because I enjoy both. So maybe Tuesday I'm doing something very like, oh, I'm just gonna do a bunch of scary Kong prees because I'm bad at it and it's fun to try. But then Wednesday I'm doing strength training. But then Thursday I'm like on my stomach the entire day. Like it varies so much, and I think that varies because I follow my interests. And I think if people did that more, their style would be more and more like themselves. If you follow
Hmm.
your interests, the only realistic outcome is you're going to be a more you version of yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. The most authentic. a
Yeah.
unique version of yourself. I want to, now that you've said Thursday, you just have belly days. I really want you to just set a camera up and like live stream it like a yoga instructor live streams a session. Just you and one block. Like you do like a quick intro. This is
Yeah.
Kevin
I
Franzen.
have been
This is my
thinking about doing a
session.
live stream. I thought it could be fun to do a live stream of just a session on a wall or something.
It would
Um,
be interesting to like do it less as a hey watch me and more
yeah.
as like I'm gonna be live streaming this session. It would be sick to organize like 8 other people who were also had the same obstacle and make it like feel like very collaborative. Like that would be a cool, I don't know if you, yeah, that'd be fun. I'd want that excuse to try a bunch of weird stuff on my stomach. So if you do it, holler at me.
All right, I'm writing it down. I have my block and piece of paper.
There we go. The
All
sticky note
right.
is out.
It's it's down. All right.
The sticky note is out. This has been so awesome. I feel like I could continue to ask you a million questions about culture and
Please.
brainstorming, but I'm just really happy to kind of to pick your brain. I guess
Pick it some more.
where yeah, where do you the next thing I do kind of want to dig into is like where do you see culture, the sort of culture going on a broad scale and training because you are so in all aspects of the scene. You're very on the streets, you're coaching, so you're seeing that next generation come up and you're at these bigger comps. What do you feel like the sort of bigger, broader conversation is that you're seeing and direction?
It's incredibly varied, and I hang out with a bunch of different people who have different interests. I see people moving towards performative arts and not like moving into it, but trying to make parkour like bring it together in a way. I see people, trying to appeal it as an art form. See people trying to do it like competitively at a professional level where like this is where you get sponsors money and like trying to get people in like for example people who compete at FIG regularly. I'm a good friend of Ellis who repeatedly competes and wins there, but he also goes to street events as well. And people are I think the sport is going to be more not split up in a way of like I don't like these people, they don't like me, but more as in
Mm-hmm.
like, oh yeah, they do this, I like doing this, and then you can kind of like go in between, yeah. And I think
Yeah,
we're already sort of
structured.
yeah, we're already sort of there. I think it'll just head more into that structure, and what I hope people do with that is that they don't get stuck in one and think that that's what they need to do. Especially, I mean, great if you really like doing that, then that's what you should do. But if you're like, I don't, this is not as fun. Maybe it would be more fun to do this, but like that's not really the same parkour that I do. Like the
Yeah.
skills translate. Just go. Like try the different thing. Uh, I think that's where it's headed. It's splitting up a bit, but I hope that doesn't, or sectioning, not splitting up, sectioning, I guess. But that I hope that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mm, lead to people confining themselves.
Yes. No, I agree. I see that as well. I think I made a video that was like 2, 3 months ago about uh putting more names on these different sort of genres of parkour or training styles. And the whole point for me of that video was that when you have language to talk about it, it feels less like parkour's drifting apart and more like, oh, people like to inherently practice different aspects of a discipline. Some people really like to skate vert and then they occasionally skate street. Some people like to go do enduro biking and other people like downhill. It's just kind of like it to me is a way that you can wrap your identity around in it, but I think when there's no language to talk about it, it becomes easier to think, well, no, I'm actually doing real parkour, or
Mm,
I'm doing like the version that I do is what everybody should be doing, and that other version is kind of just like not really the thing. And I'm curious to see what that happens to because I see the same formalization and structure developing. And I think that while I appreciate that some people are concerned that saying, oh, that person, like Callum does more like trad parkour, and that person is a style parkour athlete, or whatever the language is that we settled on. I feel like it's kind of like in a relationship. It's like when you can talk about something clearly with your partner, you can work through anything. But if you don't have the language to even start to talk about the problem, sometimes you don't even realize there's a problem until it's too late.
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting thing. And I agree with your observation, though, that I currently feel like it happening in a pretty organic, healthy way. And it's just people following their interests. And as you get older and you've been in the sport for longer, I think those interests will continue to, the people who were pushing that path 10 years ago just keep pushing that path. So the path goes even farther in a different, new, interesting direction,
Yeah,
which is so fascinating.
and like you can drift off that, not drift off that path, but take a different path. Like that's fine. I mean, look at
Yep.
Joe Scandrett. He used to be like a powerhouse athlete that did like round off dub backs, double cheek gainers, and now he does pole slides and that kind of stuff. Like whatever your interest is at, you go there. I think that's the end all. But I love the analogy, or like the example of like like a relationship, because I think that's really important, like you said. And sometimes like, yeah, you need to put it in words. And even when you have like a feeling, like it's great to like even just like, I have this feeling, I don't know why, but and then you figure it out. And maybe that also could come into this somehow. Very vague
Yeah.
once again. But so are
That's okay.
feelings.
It's before we drift into the relationship advice segment
Yeah.
of the podcast.
Yeah.
Well, the last
Yeah.
thing that I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you, unless you had a question or anything that you wanted to talk about in particular.
No, I'm just really enjoying this conversation. I don't want it to end. That's why.
I'll ask you my final question. I ask everybody. We can see where that takes us.
Okay.
Which is, if you had to recommend one piece of media to the listener, it could be a book, it could be a movie, podcast, anything like that. What would it be?
Uh, that's difficult. I was listening to your podcast with Sam Kopak and you guys talking about movies, and I started geeking out about movies because I was really into movies for a while. I studied film at high school. And some of the movies you guys were mentioning, I was like, oh, that's, yeah, yeah, super interesting. But in terms of literature, there's a really cool book called The War of Art.
Mm-hmm. Is it
Um,
Stephen Pressfield? I think.
Stephen
Maybe.
Pressfield.
Yeah.
Uh, I listened to it in an audio form on YouTube while just going to sauna for a while. And I just thought it was interesting. It's kind of like it is sort of the same thing over and over, but it is this thing of like you should just follow your interest, and as soon as you go away from that, or you could say interest, I say interest, but it could be like this kind of, people say muse, people say whatever, but like wherever your that kind of feeling goes towards, vaguely put, like that's where you should go. And as soon as you kind of betray it, this is what he goes over, this muse he calls it, when you betray the muse, it'll stop serving to you. And I think there's a certain truth to that, like, so that's a really cool thing. And you don't have to buy the book, like you can just listen to it for free on YouTube. Somebody uploaded it illegally, and it's great. That's a good one for sure. Callum's new book is great. I've been reading it. That's definitely a recommendation as well. Um, in terms of videos, Out of Time, if you have not seen it, by Oleg Vorslav. I mean, I most people who watch this have seen it.
If you're listening to this, yeah, you've
Yeah, you've
probably seen
seen
Out
it.
of Time.
If you've
Take
not
this as an
seen
excuse to
Uro,
watch it again.
if you've not
Oh,
seen
yeah.
Uro, that's a good one. There's a I thought it was relatively unknown, but it has a shit ton of views, called a video from old Berlin called Berlin als Beute 2.
Mm,
Um,
okay.
and it's just a fun video to watch. There's nothing to, I don't feel like there's a lot to take away, but the cutting is really cool. There's not a very It's very straightforward. and it finishes with this guy doing a massive gainer drop straight to his heels on concrete, landing on his ass and then walking away, and it's amazing.
Nice. Nice.
Mm,
Well, that is a great place to finish. I'll second the War of Art as a recommendation too. That's a
yeah,
really good
it's
one.
a great book.
Yeah. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for taking the time late at night
Oh,
over
dude,
there in
I
Sweden.
have no problem with late at night. I'm unfortunately a night owl in the sense of like my ideas runs wild with ideas at night. So this has been super enjoyable, and thank you for having me on. I hope to come back sometime and talk something else because this was really fun as a conversation as well.
We'll do it again soon. Heck yeah.
Great.
What a guy Kevin Franzen is. Such a gentleman, such a lovely conversation. I was like very cognizant of trying to keep this one a little bit more succinct than some of the ramblier episodes that we've had recently. And I'm glad that we did, but it definitely motivated me to do round two because there were so many things that I just wanted to hear Kevin's perspective on. If you would like a second episode with Kevin, let me know. This was one of the fastest episodes for me in terms of how I experienced it that I've done so far. And I think up there is one of my favorite conversations that I've had. There have been so many good ones, but I think that just how Kevin taps into so many aspects of the sport and has such a variety of interests from coaching and education to the practice to the theory to the culture. Truly could have gone on for hours and hours with Kevin. So if you'd like another episode, drop a comment. Thank you, as always, for listening. I really appreciate it, and I will see you next week.